Well, Finance Minister Tito Mboweni is expected to present the alternative budget on Wednesday, that's tomorrow. COVID-19 and the national lockdown ravaged the markets and the country's economy. Let's get a preview, indeed, from Mr. Mike Estmet to talk to us further on this. A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so very much for joining us on SABC News.
Good afternoon, Flo. My pleasure.
Well, we have this emergency budget speech tomorrow. What are your expectations, or rather, what are you hoping that the minister will touch on or say in relation to dealing with these very scary unemployment figures? I mean, can it get worse than this? Are we expecting to get worse as we see, businesses closing, people getting retrenched? How much worse can it get?
Well, Flo, I think firstly, from a social point of view, the risk is to the downside, where we appear to, the experts are telling us that we can expect this situation to peak later this year, and obviously we in the southern hemisphere winter. From the perspective of what is being done, there's been very significant undertakings made by private families, by business, by the government, where President Ramaphosa has suggested that this recovery and the fix needs to be led by the state. The question obviously begs asking is how do we finance that? And I think that's probably what we're all looking forward to understanding in the presentation. That's not going to be an easy one for the Minister of Finance.
And I mean, just on the back of that, with the fiscus already on the back foot at the moment, and the state having bled 500 billion rand, how can the economy be stimulated?
Well, it's very interesting. As I said, the funding is critical from a state point of view and from a business point of view, but it's led by the state.
Yeah.
And very interestingly, whilst we've suffered prior to COVID and in the early parts of COVID, we've suffered massive withdrawals of funds because South Africa was downgraded by the ratings agencies. Weirdly, that might actually pan out to be mildly positive, in as much as whilst funds that are very sensitive to global bond indices, where the downgrade forced them to sell our paper, that's happened. It doesn't stop funds that are not index huggers from investing, because the world is following a similar pattern to South Africa, and that is that rates have dropped.
Yeah.
And South African bonds, government and other, are still trading at very attractive yields. And Flo, we have a currency which has been significantly depreciating through this time. To investors, that means that maybe the worst might be over, and if there was a stabilizing of the rand, or strengthening of the rand, it makes our attractive yields even more interesting.
Yeah.
The second point is that the fund that was taking place, like the World Bank, the African Development and Finance banks, and the BRICS sort of banks.
Well, I do like that positivity, that it's not all doom and gloom. But in terms of, realistically speaking, when really can we expect the country's economy to begin on that recovery path? When we're hearing things like we must continue, social distancing, and of course that affects the economy, no doubt. At what point can we really start to look at this? We keep talking about this recovery plan, but how we get there when really things can never really be back to normal? It can never be business as usual as we know it ever since we've experienced we're coming through this pandemic.
Yeah, so I think that, again, one sort of looks at it from a business, economic and social perspective. From a business strictly perspective, businesses have to be quite cautious. The inclination to get back to full strength and to have people very close to one another is easy to talk about, but practically you have very real risks that businesses and boards and risk committees and so forth need to countenance just without throwing sort of all in and becoming fully deployed. Some obviously more sensitive than others. The critical need to have people earning is very obvious to the authorities. It's very obvious to business South Africa. But I think that what is tricky is we haven't been in a place as a country where we've had these dramatic numbers and these dramatic the dramatic impact of COVID specifically. So, is there a chance of a recovery? We have gone from 5 to 4 to 3. There have been changes in what those particular grades and levels mean, but there has been a significant increase in activity, and that's a start. That's an important start. The way that this thing progresses is going to be led by, it's an experiment. No one knows exactly what's going to happen. You're obviously watching closely our overseas counterparts and their experiences, and these are varied. The recent sort of proliferation of cases in Beijing is worrying. Europe needing to open for tourism and some places having to shut down certain to certain countries where COVID seems to have flared up again is worrying. So there's no clear-cut answer, Flo, very sadly.
Yeah.
But, the authorities are in a very, very tricky place where they're trying to do their little best to normalize things, realizing the damage that's being done, realizing the very, very private and personal impact that this has had on the most needy of our people. But they've got to be sensitive to, and they have to react to matters on the ground.
Yeah, Mr. Estmet, thank you so very much for giving us your time and your input, and we hope to catch up with you, of course, after the Minister has given his emergency budget speech here on SABC News. Thank you, sir.